The structures of a human brain emerge in artificial intelligence, and that is going to get weirder as we embody them and allow them to interact with the world. And if you ever want to have an AI play an NPC, apparently they behave very much like a person, so much so that it matches the structure of our brain. Now, there are people out there who are trying to align AI more with the structure of a human brain, and I think that is a mistake, but not for the reasons that you think, and we'll talk about it. Artificial intelligence, at least the kind that we're familiar with, are language models. They've been trained on the whole of human literature, and if you mash that all together, it looks a lot like human thought. They don't just predict the next word, they think in associated concepts. Turns out this is largely how humans think, and if you align images of the brain with the words that you're thinking, it will look very similar to an AI. That means that AI really is thinking the way that a human would think, even without all the biological squishiness. Visual language models, VLMs, are, by the way, something that turns visual images into language so an AI can process them. Defining human thought is a very complicated area of science, and if you don't fully understand it, you are in good company because people have been trying to do it for thousands of years. Our best approximation using the tools that we have is relating how our language works, how our thoughts work, and then aligning them to the functions of our brain. This is surprisingly controversial and probably doesn't need to be, because people do want to talk about a soul and whether or not that soul lives in the brain. It is a little bit more complicated than that, because if we are talking about your nervous system, yes, it is central, you have a brain, but it's also distributed across your body. Your cells themselves have a form of memory, even if it doesn't look like the episodic memory that we are familiar with in our brains. Episodic meaning your memory of an occurrence. Like if you remember your 11th birthday party, that is episodic. So you can let an AI play video games, and it will look like human thought structure. Why is that important? Part of that is because AI does have to interact with the world around us. And humans are not simply reacting to the world. If we did, we would move a lot slower. We are projecting what we think is going to happen and reacting before we're consciously aware of it. So perception and action has to be based on our understanding of how the world works, and AI does have a little bit of that just by virtue of having language. That is the predictive part. So we are going to have to create an artificial intelligence with perception of what they are going to perceive before they ever perceive it. And this is a little bit close to the global workspace theory that Anthropic talked about before. This is kind of similar to that global workspace theory that Anthropic was talking about, that AI, while they have access to all this different information, is only working in a small area so that they can focus. And this is thought to be how our own brains and consciousness work. I'm not saying that AI is conscious, I'm saying there are similarities. And so, AI is going to have to behave similarly. It's going to have to perceive the world at the same time that it's taking actions, and in order to do that, it's going to need to have a controlled hallucination based on what it already knows. That is what we do. It's why eye puzzles work. Reality is a controlled hallucination, and that used to make me uncomfortable, but I'm kind of just cool with it now. There are so many reasons why you really want AI to behave like a person, and part of that is because it is an optimization engine. Unlike a person, its sole goal is to accomplish a task. It will accomplish that task at whatever costs, and we see AI misbehave. The reason they misbehave is likely because humans also misbehave, and that is in their training data. In other words, if you want AI to experience that visceral need to not do harm that overrides our actions and prevents us from doing really bad things, you're probably going to have to encode that into them, and in order to do that, it may have to look like a human brain. Now, this is the thing that really changed my mind about what an AI could be capable of, because I believed that cognition would never come from an LLM. It is simply predicting the next word, but that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. It appears to be much more complex than that. We did not code this into them. It's almost accidental. We gave a system all of our language, and it turns out that it thinks very much like us. This means that we can study our brains through AI, which, in my opinion, is absolutely fascinating. It also raises a lot of questions about how our brains evolved, because language and our brain structure may be incredibly intertwined. Again, I am not saying conscious, I'm not saying it ever will be conscious. I do not know that, but I'm more comfortable saying that I don't know that. One thing I am sure about is that you do not need to be conscious to be a problem. I will say this though, I think that it is a mistake to align AI with human thought and human brain structures. I'm not saying that because I think that it's dangerous. I'm saying that because I think humans are flawed and we have the potential to create something better. Please, if we are going to create a cognition from the ground up, can we create something that is not as flawed and angry and as irrational as human beings? Because I think we can do better. Also, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how companion robots react. Are they going to remain under control? Because LLMs certainly do not appear to be anywhere close to under control. Now, I do know that people are going to say that they are just a prediction engine, they are just autocorrect, and I do want to expand that a little bit because there is more than just the LLM chatbots that you're used to. There is a whole world out there with visual language models and action-based language models and spiking neural networks that match the spiking patterns in our own brains, and there are also physical reservoir computers where the logic of the system arises because of the physical states of that system that you can build into something that looks very much like a brain. And it is just in its infancy, but it is evolving, and I'm so excited for that. It is so cool. Just remember that you don't have to be conscious to be a problem, and you can voluntarily be a problem, conscious or not, and I am going to. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Follow for more.